Many thanks to Spark for being the presenting sponsor of African Tech Roundup's podcast mini-series on the entrepreneurial progress being made in some of the world's most vulnerable states. Spark is a Dutch NGO that bridges the gap between higher education and entrepreneurship in fragile and conflict-ridden regions of North and Sub-Saharan Africa and the Middle East. To learn more about Spark and the opportunities they're creating, visit sparkonline.org. That's spark-online.org. In this podcast, I chat with the co-founder and manager of an organization operating in Somalia and Somaliland called Shaqodoon, which translated to English means job seeker. Shaqodoon serves up programs designed to help unemployed and out-of-school youth acquire marketable work and life skills. Many of these initiatives are delivered thanks to strong partnerships the organization has struck with local communities, government, international NGOs, and the indigenous private sector. My guest studied for a computer science degree at the University of Westminster and has gained a wealth of hands-on management experience while working in the youth employment, entrepreneurship, and education space in Somalia and Somaliland. So, listen in for insight into the health of the region's growing entrepreneurship support ecosystem and to get a sense of what interventions are working well and why. This podcast was taped at the fringes of Spark's 6th annual Ignite conference, a premier gathering of refugees, entrepreneurs, educators, private sector actors, government leaders, academics, and NGOs. This is an independent African Tech Roundup production. The opinions expressed by me, your host, and those of my guests do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the presenting partner, Spark.
Hi, my name is Mustafa Othman. I'm the Communication and Technology Manager for a local organization based in Somalia and Somaliland.
Welcome to the African Tech Roundup, Mustafa.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about your organization. You're also a founder. That's what you left out of your description, rather humbly. You founded this organization. Tell us a little bit about it, why you exist and what you do.
Okay, Shaqodoon organization is a local organization. We have about 5 offices now. With 50 employees working there. We founded the organization in 2011, and it was actually a spin-off of a funded project by Education Development Center. And ever since, we've been working on the areas of youth employment, entrepreneurship, private sector development, and technology for development.
Share how you identify a pocket of need and then sort of formulate a strategy for plugging that gap. I suppose you might explain your model as part of that explanation.
The way we formulate need is, of course, we work with the communities. With the communities we work with, all our programs is grounded to the roots. Our offices are obviously equipped and staffed by local people, local staff that understand the context, that understand the communities. So one of our first areas, of course, is talking to the communities, understanding their needs, and obviously using design thinking approach to design programs that will impact them.
How do you finance this process?
Well, we have 2 finance mechanisms. One is the donor funding. We bid for donor funds some of our work. And others, we are social enterprise. And we provide mobile services to organizations and companies, whether it's SMS systems, IVR systems. And these allow us to generate revenues for us to continue with our work, even without donor funding.
As a percentage of your revenue, what's donor funded versus revenue generated by other means?
About 30% is actually from our from our aggregator work, and the rest is donor funding.
Right. So I haven't been to Somalia or Somaliland, and I'm sure many members of our audience have not either. And there are unfortunate stereotypes that immediately come to mind when one thinks of those places. So for our benefit, really just give us a sense of the landscape with specific regards to the ecosystem that provides support for entrepreneurs looking to found businesses.
So Somalia and Somaliland are, just recovering from years of conflict. Some parts are more developed than others, and some are only recently been liberated from extremist groups. So you can understand in some levels, some are better than others and some are not. So if I start with Somaliland, for example, Somaliland now it's really has been having peace for the last 20 plus years, 28 years. They declared themselves as an independent country, but A lot has been happening, and there's a lot of supporting organizations that support entrepreneurs. For example, some who support women organizations, some who support startups. So, for example, one example is the new sort of innovation hub we recently built called Har Hub or Hargeisa Hub. So, Har Hub supports startups, early stage startups, whether it's tech-based companies or whether it's non-tech-based companies. And the facility really provides incubation services and a space for young people to come together, feel safe, and be creative and come up with ideas that they can ignite the ideas.
I suppose part of my motivation in asking the question is I'm aware that in any ecosystem, there are the interventions and the projects in the space that make funders look good and feel good about themselves, and then the ones that actually work and make a difference. From that standpoint, what would you say the health of the support ecosystem is? If I were to throw a stone at a random assortment of entrepreneurs that are based in your region, what do you think their response might be in terms of their sense of the level of support they receive and in terms of how that support translates into actual business progress?
To be honest, one of the main challenges that young entrepreneurs face is access to finance. And this really is one of the main crippling areas. And also there are a lot of institutions that provide support. However, they may not have the necessary skills to be able to provide the support that these companies need. For example, if it's a tech-based company who really, you have some bright ideas, who have wants to become the next Google, there isn't really a sort of a hub, or even before Har Hub that we were trying to do now to actually support this. One of the major issues that also facing youth is accessing financing from banks, because banks require guarantors, they require fixed assets which these youth do not have, and also policies in terms of starting our business is also not well established, and it costs a lot of money for somebody to register their business. And we as Shaqodoon have lobbied for this to change, and hopefully we're trying to get some results in the coming year. So there are some other organizations that provide, there's hubs, few hubs that is now springing up, providing support. But there are so many challenges that are facing them. Also, the education system in the region, in Somalia and Somaliland also is also another major challenge, because you will get a lot of universities students who are graduating, but who do not really have the skills to be marketable or to nurture their ideas into something that will, result in getting them financing. So we've been working with, for example, universities and the Ministry of Education to include entrepreneurship in education. And now some change has happened, and some universities are now adding that into their work.
So what do you consider your primary mission as an organization, given that landscape?
Our primary mission really is to nurture these entrepreneurs.
And by that, what do you mean nurture? And how early are these entrepreneurs? Are you trying to help them prepare for a world beyond the borders of Somalia and Somaliland? Are you trying to catch them younger than even high school age? What does nurture mean in your context?
So for us, how we're different from other organizations and other institutions is that we really focus on people who have ideas, but who may not have the right resources, number one, and secondly, the skills to make it happen. So as long as you have a great idea, and you need the support you need to grow your business and your idea into something that will lead to a business plan, and then the business itself being implemented is what we focus on. So it's not about supporting existing businesses, but supporting people who have great ideas and help them along the way through training. So we have an accelerator program, help them along the way through trainings, help them develop their business plans and really think about their business ideas, help them do budgeting and forecasting, and then once done, helping them gain funding, whether it's through loans or grants or crowdfunding.
So you've referenced in passing public-private partnerships. You've spoken about lobbying government to enact policies that promote your mission as an organization. There are other innovation architects like you in other parts of the world, certainly on the continent, but perhaps elsewhere, who are trying to crack this whole public-private partnership thing. So reflect on your own experience and give them some tips.
Okay, so through our programs, we've seen a lot of successes. Number one, universities now including entrepreneurship as part of their curricula. We've seen more attention from the government in supporting young people to become entrepreneurs. So, for example, Somaliland government has now announced a youth fund, which they are now planning to put between $200 to $1 million of funding in there to support startups. We've also been talking to the Ministry of Commerce about, easing the fees that the young entrepreneurs have to pay to be able to register their business. And now, we're working with them to see how that can be done.
I also heard of one of the biggest banks in Somalia starting an innovation fund. Is that correct?
Yes, there's a bank called Premier Bank, which only very recently, announced a new fund for youth, $1 million fund, which is really, really good. We don't have much details on this yet, but they've really only recently announced it, which is a really good step.
So give me a sneak peek at your playbook at engaging government, at making the phone calls or the overtures towards business or grant funding organizations. How are you engineering your engagement in this regard and share in a way that might help other people learn from your experience?
Well, the key to this is I think for us, we've been in the business for over 8 years. Over the 8 years, we've been people have came to learn our quality of work. They've come to know our genuinity and our expertise and appreciate that. So governments will listen when they know what you're talking about. Private sector companies and institutions that may fund or sponsor specific programs will listen because they know of your quality of your work. So one of the key successes is actually your quality. You have to emphasize, because you see a lot of organizations may just chase the money, where others actually build expertise on one sector and focus on that sector to ensure that they are supporting and being impactful in that sector. And this, I think, one of our key areas is that. Secondly, most of our staff are experts. So we have staff who have been working with us and working in this sector for like 15 years, 10 years, who are really experts in what they are doing. And again, this also builds trust with banks and other institutions, because once we refer people to them to finance, they know that they've gone through a very stringent process and that they are likely not to fail. So these are some of the ways we're trying to do this, and also good relationships with whether it's the government and whether it's the financial institutions and our donors. And also in terms of donors love, of course, success. And one of the most important things is you need to be able to showcase your success and show the good stories and the work you're already doing.
Is it fair to say that the definition of success is a contentious issue? And so for that reason, define it for me. What does success look like for you in the short to medium term? How does that definition sometimes perhaps come into conflict with what a donor might register as success?
Our success really is creating jobs. As long as we can create one job, that for us is a major success. So in all of our work, anything we're doing, it's all about creating jobs. So if we do a training for a business, our aim and focus is for them to grow and then create a new job for a youth. If we're trying to support a new business to launch, we want that business to create more opportunities and more jobs for youth. So for us, success really equals to the number of jobs that we create on an annual basis.
And so that's the big scoreboard you have in your boardroom that's going, okay, so we hit 1,000 this year, everybody. Do those wins register as wins for everybody you work with? And if not, why?
There's always tension in organizations, and that's very, very normal. But not everybody sees it that way. Some people, see the vision as the way to go. Some people may, see it in a different way. But for most of the people, especially the senior staff, understand what the vision and the focus is, and this is, it all depends on your leadership as well, how you lead your team and how you lead the organization.
We're taking a quick break to tell you a little more about Spark, the presenting sponsor of this series. Spark is a Dutch NGO with a difference. Since being founded by 2 Dutch students in the 1990s to stem the degradation of higher education in the Balkans, the organization has grown to deliver expert services in 15 of the world's most vulnerable countries, including Libya, Liberia, and Syria. Spark bridges the gap between higher education and entrepreneurship by providing scholarships to displaced people, catalyzing student participation through civic leadership, and providing entrepreneurs with the support they need to succeed. To learn more about how Spark is rebuilding futures through vocational education and SME growth programs in the Middle East, as well as North and Sub-Saharan Africa, visit sparkonline.org. That's spark-online.org. And now, back to the conversation.
What about the incentives that basically influence the foreign aid cycle? Do you find that the incentives that make that world spin are in line with what you would like to see happening in Somalia and Somaliland?
Yes, I mean, there's some interesting things that are happening. In the past, it was a top-down approach by donors. So donors would tell you, oh, this is what we want to do, can you do this? But now it's donors are saying, okay, you come up with the ideas. You know your problems better than us. Tell us, what do you guys need? You need, do you need to do this, or do you need to do a new road, for example, or do you need to do a new training center? What do you guys want to do? So now it's becoming more from the bottom up. And this is really good and interesting that we are seeing this. It only happened probably in the last 3 years. It's been happening now. It's really encouraging.
Give me some specific hopes and dreams, perhaps even more tangibly, objectives that you have for your organization and perhaps broadly speaking for the people you serve. In the short term, say 2 to 5 years. In the medium term, perhaps 15 to 20. What do you want us to be back on the mic on in 2 years' time and 5 years' time, talking about or reflecting on as successes that you have under your belt?
Short term really is trying to create as many jobs for youth as possible.
Okay, so you've said that.
Yeah. Secondly, one of the reasons why we're doing this is also to stop young people from migrating, because this is another thing that's happening to the region in Somalia, Somaliland, is a brain drainage. All the young, smart guys are leaving the country. So we're going to see how we can, in the short term, stop that. Show that there's opportunities, show that there's ways of these youth can make it in their country without going abroad and trying to migrate to other countries. In the short term, we also want to see the country's economy to grow. We want to see more stronger companies that can absorb more youth into employment. In the long run, as an organization, we want to create a fund, a youth startup fund, which really is to support, very early idea stage startups, support them, guide them along the way, and help them to get financing because they cannot get it from anywhere else. And also to support those that would not, who don't have rich uncles, who are, living in informal settlements, who may not have access to an uncle that has assets or is a guarantor. So supporting that, so creating a fund is really our long-term. So our long-term vision is to do that, maybe like $1 million fund. We want the hub that we've recently built, Hargeisa Hub or Har Hub, to continue to support much greater numbers of entrepreneurs, and trying to create the new, the next Google, the next Facebook, to hopefully come up from Somalia and Somaliland.
So I'm going to push back on something before I ask you the final question. You mentioned, you want to stop this brain drain and incentivize people to stay home and make the country work. I guess there's a side of me that feels some kind of way about that, in the sense that when a country does well, it becomes part of what's going on in the world, and we all become sort of global citizens, and this issue of sort of brain drain or talent flight or whatever you call it becomes far less of an issue when things work. And I suppose there's a side of me that's also a bit skeptical, because there's clearly an agenda in developed parts of the world to prevent refugees from making their way to Europe and the Americas and wherever they're not wanted. So there seems to be this desperate scramble to ensure that everyone's happy and stays home, which again has its benefits, and you can argue positively in that direction. But I'm looking for words to sort of wrap this up in a nice nutshell. But there it is.
To be honest with you, for me, brain drainage is one of the sort of destroyers of I believe of any country, because if all your smart people are migrating and leaving your country, that means your doctors will not be there. Therefore, the citizens will be dissatisfied with the health system. Your lawyers will leave. Therefore, they will be dissatisfied with the legal system and the justice system in the region. Though your best politicians will no longer be there and probably go into other places to work, and therefore you're going to get these people who may not be fit for office that will fill these positions. For me, I really believe that keeping these people in the country is for the greater good. It may be a selfish thing for the country, maybe a selfish thing for in terms of individually level, but it's good for the country because you keep these people, you give them opportunities, you let them stay, and you let them flourish, and this will contribute to the growth of the country and the region.
Fair enough. Final question. There are some ideas people have about the role technology plays in a place like Somalia and Somaliland. The idea that perhaps if everyone had a smartphone in their hand, things would be awesome. Or if internet access was just widespread and inexpensive, lives would be changed. And I'm not trying to diminish the impact of, those two things necessarily, but give us an idea of the technologies that are trending in your region and why. And they don't necessarily have to be high tech.
Okay, what's trending in technology in Somalia and Somaliland really is, social media like Facebook, WhatsApp, especially WhatsApp groups. Especially WhatsApp groups, more interestingly, is now being used by older people to raise funds for specific community causes, where there's, a new school being rehabilitated. So they set up a WhatsApp group to do that. The more younger generations, they're using, Facebook, they're using more recently Snapchats, Instagram, and that kind of stuff. In terms of other sort of technologies that's been used, it's really the phone. So people like to talk. So we have really cheap calling rates in the region. So, for example, Telesom is the largest telecommunication company, followed by Somtel. And although these two companies do not interact and they don't have interconnection, people can only talk to Telesom to Telesom or Somtel to Somtel. But our internet in urban areas is extremely fast. It's really, really good. But when you go to rural areas, it's almost non-existent. That's when then, when our work, for example, SMS and IVR systems, which are all technologies, come really, really handy because you don't need internet to be able to operate this. And in some places like in South Central Somalia, internet has been banned by extremist groups. So people only result in using just a simple mobile phone to be able to connect, to be able to call and text. So these things are what's trending. And more recently we're seeing mobile apps that similar to Uber. That you can use to get your ride for your taxi.
I want to give a shout out to Delivery. All the guys and gals are working hard to deliver food out there, man. We see you, fam.
Yeah. So our friend Dek, his name is Dek. He's set up a new, very innovative food delivery company called Gulivery, which basically means it's for house, and then livery is a delivery. So it's mixing Somali and English. But it started in Somaliland.
See, I didn't even pronounce it right. I said Gulivery. It's Gulivery. Yes. We see you, Dick.
Yeah. So he started in Somaliland, and he did a great job. I think he's still functioning there. And now he's moved to a bigger market in Mogadishu and South Central Somalia. And I think he's doing very well. But there's new other ones that have also came up called Safari. I think Safari is a new one that I know of that's about to be launched in Somaliland.
So this on-demand economy trend is starting to infiltrate?
Absolutely, yes. And there's so many other ideas that are coming up now. There's even event management applications that's now been talked of by one of our colleagues. Young people are now turning into creating mobile apps. There's also actually an app which Shaqodoon is also supporting through the Hargeisa hub, which we worked with Microsoft on, which is also developing a university taxi application called Triffy. It's a very interesting tool. And there's also a new app. It's also being started.
So are you mentioning things that are like really making headway into mainstream culture, or are these just good ideas that are floating around? If I came to Mogadishu, if I went to Somaliland, would people know what I'm talking about if I named these guys?
These guys are now only just really starting up. They only recently been awarded the funds to actually start up their businesses, and they're doing some amazing stuff. There's also a new blood bank application. They have a very, very interesting story, but it's the first sort of blood mobile app that has been done in the region in Somalia and Somaliland. So these are at the moment they are just starting up. They're startups just starting up, and we expect them to be growing much faster.
All right, man. Listen, I love this immersion I've just had in a country I'm yet to visit. I look forward to doing so in good time. I've heard only good things about your organization, your commitment to doing market relevant work, and not allowing your mission to be hijacked by interests who, frankly, would love to look good doing things that don't matter as much. This is what I've heard about you. One day I'll come visit and see it for myself. But for now, it suffices to say I'm grateful that you made time to be on this podcast. I have to thank you, Mustafa Othman. Thank you so much for being on the African Tech Roundup, man.
Thank you very much.